Welcome back. We are continuing our studies in Mesilat Yesharim. We have studied for quite some time, and we learned the introduction and part of the first chapter, and then we took a break for the Yamim Tovim, and we're coming back. So in order to remind ourselves, I'm going to quickly review what chapter 1 is speaking about. So I'm going to read just the English of Mesilat Yesharim, and then when we get to where we stop, then we're going to continue studying in depth. So he says like this: the foundation of devotion to Hashem and the root of perfect service is that it should become clear and it should be convincing to every one of us what is the purpose of man in his world, and toward what should he put his glance and his gaze. What should be his goal in all that he toils all the days of his life. So briefly, the foundation of our service to Hashem and our life is to make it clear what we are living for, what we are working for. We wake up and we start doing things. We run from thing to thing, from task to task. Is there a purpose? Or until we go to sleep and we look back and we say, okay, here goes another day, and I didn't accomplish anything. What for do I toil all the days of my life? Behold, what did our sages of blessed memory teach us? That the man was created only for the purpose of gaining pleasure from Hashem and to enjoy the splendor of his Shekhinah, of the divine presence. So that's the goal we have to keep in mind. We are created in order to receive pleasure from Hashem. Hashem created us not to serve him, but rather that he should serve us. And for that, we have to live a life that we should feel that we deserved his blessing. Then the blessing will be really enjoyable. And then we will be able to enjoy the splendor of Shekhinah. That is the true pleasure and the greatest of all forms of delight, of all the delights that could be found in the world. The pleasure of our communication with God, the pleasure of realizing that everything we get in life is coming as a gift from Hashem. To understand that there is a relationship, not to take things for granted. And the true place of this pleasure is Olam Haba, the world to come. Because the world to come was created with the preparation that is necessary for this pleasure. As we explained that our physical world has a lot of pleasures, and if we learn Shar HaBechina, the gate of examination, where we examine the physical world and how it's created for our benefit, out of love of Hashem for us, we will enjoy the world more. Because as the Gemara says, who is considered a good guest? The one that says, everything that the host prepared was for me. So a good guest enjoys the party. Why? Because he doesn't feel, oh, I'm just a byproduct, everyone was invited and I just came to partake a little bit on the side. No, the good guest says, Everything was made for me. I'm the main guest over here, the guest of honor. And the owner of the house thought about me, and the owner of the house cared for me and gave me what is going to give me the best benefit and the best pleasure. And then I will have gratitude to the owner, and I will accept everything as custom made for me, and therefore I'll gain more pleasure, as opposed to feeling I'm just picking up crumbs that fell from the royal table. It's not for me, it wasn't made for me, God didn't think about me. No, we say God thought about me, He prepared everything for me. So this world is a world of great pleasure, but now we learn that as much as pleasure we have in this world, it's nothing compared to the next world. And we explained in the past that in this world we're limited by our brain, by our senses, by the number of connections and number of neurons, and therefore what we feel and what we can process with our brain is limited. But in the next world, where we will see and sense things with our soul, which is unlimited, Hashem can really shower us with unlimited pleasure. So now the goal becomes different. The goal is not only to achieve greatest pleasure in this world, the goal is to prepare in this world to achieve the greatest pleasure in the next world. And the path to reach this destination is by means of this world. This is what our sages said. This world is like a vestibule to the world to come. As it says in the Mishnah, prepare yourself in the vestibule in order to enter the banquet hall. Prepare yourself, change your character, do mitzvot, learn Torah, come close to Hashem. Beautify your soul so that when you come to the world to come, you will be sensitive enough to feel the pleasure. And now, Baruch Hashem, we reviewed the beginning of chapter 1, what we covered so far, and now we're going to go in depth on page 98 of Rabbi Victor Miller's edition of Mesilat Yesharim. Chapter 1.15, Tikkun, preparation or fixing. The number 1 is don't do damage. This is again the book Mesilat Yesharim, the white edition, or Avigdor, with Rabbi Victor Miller's commentary. Number 1 job of a human being in this world is not to do damage. Just like doctors take an oath not to do harm, because when a doctor sees a patient who is weak, he has to be very careful not to weaken him even further. Just like you're driving on a road and chas v'shalom you see an accident and you run and you want to help, they tell you don't help because you don't know how to help. Call ambulance, police, paramedics, let them help. Even though the person is laying there and crying, help, help, you can't help because you might pick him up in the wrong way and chas v'shalom break his back or even kill him because you don't know how to do it. So too, if you're not sure what to do, don't do anything. Don't do damage. And therefore, every person has to understand that life is a dangerous matter. And the faster you will learn the laws of life, the halachot, the faster you will learn how to control your character, not to hurt anybody, the safer your life will be. The safer your passage through this world will be. And so we should not postpone our learning for later. Because just like you don't start driving and say, I'll learn and pass the driving course later. let me drive in the meantime. If I make a few mistakes, it's okay. No, because it's very dangerous. If you crash and kill someone or yourself, chas v'shalom, it's going to be too late. So too with life. You don't say, oh, it's okay, let me live my life and later when I have time I'll learn. Let me get married, I'll try to figure out how to treat my wife. No. First learn how to treat your wife and then get married. Oh, let me have children and then we'll swing it, we'll somehow figure out how to raise them. No. Don't damage your children. Don't sacrifice your children on the altar of your ego. Rather, make it your job to learn how to raise children. And so on and so forth. Learn about mitzvot, learn about prohibitions, and then live a successful life. So, Mesilat Yesharim quotes a midrash in which Hashem speaks to Adam HaRishon, the first man. Hashem said to him, look at my work. How beautiful and how praiseworthy my creations are. And everything that I created is only because of you, man. Therefore, put your mind, pay attention on the following obligation that you have. You should not damage and ruin my world. That's the command Hashem gave to Adam. Make this world a better place, but keep in mind always not to damage the world. Therefore, we learn that there are two important functions in life. Tikkun, making things better than they were, and secondly, not to spoil anything. The Torah says, when you will come to the land and you should plant fruit trees. That's the translation according to the Midrash. The plain meaning, however, is that not when, but if you plant fruit trees. If you decide to plant fruit trees, they will be subject to the laws of Orla, the first 3 years, and other laws. But the Midrash says, not that if you plant, the Midrash says when you plant, which means it's a given. For sure, you will plant. Why? Because you're obligated to plant. You have to make the world a better place. So not if you plant, if you decide, no. You have to plant. And when you plant, for the first 3 years, don't eat the fruit. That's called Orla. You should see to it that the land remains beautiful with all the gardens and orchards that you found upon your arrival. It should continue for your children after you. As we learn in a book of Yehoshua, the Talmud tells us that Yehoshua made a decree. When the Jewish people came into the land of Israel, Yehoshua made a rabbinic proclamation, rabbinic law, that if you see a nice fruit tree in your neighbor's field, you are allowed to go in without his permission and cut off a small branch from his tree and plant it in your field. Sounds strange. Is that not called stealing? And Yehoshua said, we come into the land and the land is mostly desolate. There are pockets of populated areas, but majority of the land is uncultivated. And we want to make the land of Israel a beautiful place. And therefore, he said, in order to allow that to happen, we will give special permission at that time in the land of Israel that if you see a beautiful fruit tree, you're allowed to take a branch from each tree and plant your own orchard. It cannot damage the tree, but one little twig will not harm the tree, and Yehoshua allowed it. This is what we're learning now. You should see to it that the land remains beautiful with all the gardens and orchards that you found upon your arrival. It should continue for your children after you. That's the minimum. Make sure it continues thriving, being fruitful. And of course, step number 2 is to add to it. The Midrash continues with a story about the Roman Emperor Hadrian, who saw an old man laboring to plant a tree. And he said, "Old man, you're planting now and laboring for others, because you surely will not enjoy the fruits of this tree. You're too old." As the saying goes, if you're old, they make a joke. They tell old people, don't buy green bananas, to hint to them that you might not live to eat them. Those few days that it takes bananas to ripen, you're so old, shouldn't buy green bananas. That's what the emperor said to this old man. You're so old that you're not going to eat from this fruit, the fruit of this tree. Why are you planting it? The old man said, "My master, I'm planting so that if I will be worthy, I'll eat the fruit myself. Nobody knows how long I'm going to live. Not even you, the great emperor of Rome. Although I'm old, I might live and eat from this tree myself. And if not, let my children eat, because others planted for me. When I came into the world had fruit trees. I want to plant for my descendants." So the way the story ends is that that person actually went to sleep, and he slept for 70 years, and he woke up, and he actually was able to eat from that tree. Now, you come into this world and you're going to use the world. Make sure that it's going to be just as beautiful and as useful as it was when you came in. In Russian there is a saying, "Не плюй в колодец, пригодится воды напиться," which means don't spit in a well that you drank from, because you never know, maybe you will need to drink from it again. Yes, you drank from it, now you're leaving the place, don't spoil it. You never know, maybe you'll have to come back. And if not, at least leave it as beautiful as when you came to benefit from it. Somebody asked me, in yeshiva, what's the first thing to do after you learn Musar? After you learn Torah and you learn ethical teachings in yeshiva, what should you do? Should you go help your neighbor? Should you go call your wife and compliment her, make her feel good? And he answered, the first thing you do is to put the book back on its shelf. You found it on the shelf, put it back on the shelf. There is a common custom in synagogues and in yeshivot, in batei midrashot, unfortunately, that people take out books, they bring them to their table, and when they finish learning, they just get up and walk out without putting books back. And that is not a good idea. You came into the synagogue to pray or to learn, and you did damage to the synagogue. Now the synagogue has to pay someone to put books back, and you damaged people, because they will come to the shelf looking for a book and it's not there, and they'll have to search through the entire synagogue or Beit Midrash to find that book. So that's called mitzvah haba ba'avera, a mitzvah that you accomplished by doing a sin, by hurting others, and that mitzvah doesn't count. It would be better not to enter Beit Midrash and do damage, but stay outside and not hurt people. So, when you walk on the street, you can't litter the street by dropping things there. You found a clean street, leave a clean street. You found a good world, leave a good world. There are small things that people can do to remind themselves from time to time of this great function. If you ate breakfast, what would be the harm if you took your dishes to the sink to rinse them off yourself? Right? Don't just leave the dishes on the table for your wife to clean or for the cleaning staff to clean. The next step is to actually bring it to the sink. That's already praiseworthy. But even better is to clean them in the garbage and then wash them in the sink and put them back in the drying rack. And we might say, I have better things to do. Yes, but working on your character is preparing for Olam Haba. And that's the most important thing you can do. As Rabbi Israel Salanter says, working on your midot is even harder than learning Torah. And you get reward according to the difficulty. So since washing your own dishes is the most hard, so that is going to give you the greatest reward. Your wife gave you clean dishes, so wash off at least one dish and give it back clean. So again, if you say, oh, I can't wash all the dishes, fine. Wash something, even one spoon, even one cup, one plate, to train yourself to give back to the society, give back to your wife. Now, chapter 1.16. Another part of tikkun is emulating Hashem. Many people are accustomed to the idea of tikkun. What is tikkun? We hear about tikkunim in Kabbalah, which means improving mysterious, unseen upper worlds. That is also true. But Hashem also wants something in this world. Improve this world with Hashem's kingdom. As we say in Aleinu, Letaken olam b'malchut Shaddai. Which olam, which world we're trying to improve? This world with Hashem's kingdom. How do we improve this world with Hashem's kingdom? Hashem himself showed us the way. He was the first one to be creative. Hashem made everything. He wants us to emulate him. We should be creative too. Hashem put into us an instinct to create. In fact, when people don't